Pope died at 7:35 this morning, Monday, in Rome. And he was 88, as I mentioned. And people were shocked because of yesterday's Pope Mobile appearance. And he looked very clear-eyed as he walked around and greeted everybody, and they were ecstatic. I was in Vatican City, I think it was 81 on Easter Sunday. It's an amazing thing to be there. The Pope spent 17 minutes with Vice President Vance and gave his children, his small children, some chocolate eggs, and they had a nice conversation. It was not intense. The Vice President said that the Pope invited him. It was the Pope's invitation. So I guess Vance was the last outsider, famous person, to talk with the Pope. And I'll be interested to hear what the Vice President has to say about that conversation. He's in India now, talking to Modi, the Indian president, about, the tariffs and all this stuff that's going on. All right, a little bit about the Pope. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, born in Flores, Argentina, right outside of Buenos Aires, became a Jesuit priest in 1969. The Jesuits are the intellectual wing of the Catholic Church. It is a liberal group now. Back then, not so much. The Jesuits were involved in a movie, The Exorcist, in the book. Okay. He was appointed cardinal in 2001 by Pope John Paul II. Now, in that time in Argentina, I was down there covering the Falklands War, so I saw it firsthand. It was ruled by a military junta coming off Juan Perón. There was no freedom there, really. It was a police state. And most of the people were poor, desperately poor, because the oligarchy in Argentina stole all the money. Very important for you to understand that. So what the cardinal saw, then subsequently the Pope, was massive poverty fueled by corruption. And he became a liberation theologian. And many, many Catholic priests who work in the third world are that. The problem that Jorge Mario had was that he put the blame on capitalism for the poverty, and that was wrong. There is an editorial in the Wall Street Journal stating that. It wasn't capitalism that were keeping the people poor, it was the corrupt administration, government in Argentina run by a guy named Galtieri when I was there. And you had to fear him. Galtieri would have you killed. And I don't think there were stories about, how the cardinal didn't do what he should have done. A bunch of bull. All right, so then he gets to be Pope and he comes on in. And 8 years ago, I almost to the day, I met him in a very brief conversation, but I was in his proximity for 2 hours. And I'm a reporter, and I watched every move the man made. And he dealt with hundreds of people. He was exceedingly kind and patient. And he was 80 years old. And my interaction with him was just a greeting primarily, but he and I stared at each other for maybe 15 seconds after I said Buenos dias. I addressed him in Spanish. And it was eerie. He didn't break my gaze. I don't know whether he recognized me or knew I was in the small group. I don't know. But it was just as something came off of him. Okay. So the Pope ran into trouble in America and some other European countries because of his, not sympathy so much, but promotion. I think that's a better word. He promoted illegal immigration in the sense that he said, if you are a Christian, you have to treat these people with dignity. That was everything. Now, on December 31st, 2019, 5.5 years ago, here's what I said. As for Pope Francis himself, he is a liberation theology guy. He lives in a world where religion, Christianity, and Catholicism are there to improve the plight of the poor. You must understand where he is coming from. That is his mission. The poor. Help the poor, the downtrodden, the incarcerated, the migrants. Help them, help them, help them, help them. It does not go against Christianity. It does not. The only problem with Pope Francis is he gets into trouble when his solutions make the poverty and migrant problem worse and hurt good-minded people, which he has done. The Pope has done that. Remember, when the Pope spouts a political opinion that had nothing to do with theology, he's not infallible, it's not dogma, it's not any of that. It's just his opinion as an Argentinian cleric, which is what he is. I like him. I think he's a sincere man. I think he tries to help people. And that's my bottom line for Pope. I don't need Winston Churchill in there. So I think that's the most accurate assessment you're ever going to get on Pope Francis. Now, if he's not in heaven, then there's no hope for me. Okay? But, and there is that but, he didn't analyze the migrant movements in a way that I believe was effective, number one, or responsible, number two. Now, I guess I'm committing a sin here calling a former pope irresponsible, but he wasn't actively trying to do that, but he couldn't see the big picture. And you'll remember his quote about the Trump administration, you have to build bridges, not walls. Well, you got to obey the law, Your Holiness. I wish I had been able to, I was close to getting an interview with him. And I wish I had, because that's what I would have said. You got to obey the law. The law is there for a reason, to protect people. You can't just say, I don't like this law, because it hurts some poor people. And it does. Our exclusion of everybody in the world who's poor hurts people. If they could come here, they'd be a lot better off. That's true, but we can't do it. We can't afford it. We can't supervise it. We can't assimilate it. No nation could on this earth. And that's the truth. So I put this up to the Pope being naive and living in a world of theory. And here's the kicker on Pope Francis. Jesus the Nazarene was exactly the opposite. Not in his compassion. Jesus was the most compassionate person ever to live if you believe in the works, and I do. Okay? But Jesus respected the law. They tried to trap him with the coin thing. And then he said, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. And the message was, look, you have an obligation as a human being to help the downtrodden, to help everybody. That's Christianity. You've got to help other people. If you can't do that or won't do that, you can't be Christian. But you have to obey the law, even if it's Roman law. And Roman law was horrible. It was oppressive. There was no freedom. Tiberius made an order, you obeyed it, and you're on a cross if you didn't. But Jesus understood that he couldn't preach himself if he defied Tiberius. They would have killed him in a heartbeat, just as they killed his cousin, John the Baptist. They beheaded him because he criticized adultery on the part of the Roman governor. And if you're going to do that, you're going to die. And Jesus knew it. And Jesus' time was not to die. He needed 2 years to establish Christianity. So Jesus was much more realistic than Pope Francis. I get a lot of mail saying, well, Pope Francis has walls in the Vatican. He doesn't let everybody in. Oh, okay. I got it. But that's not important. What's important is the mindset, all right? That you've got to help people. If you're Christian, all right, you have to, you're compelled to. But you can't hurt people in the process. You can't hurt other people in the process. And I don't think Francis ever melded those two together. If he did, I didn't see it in the public statements. All right, so Donald Trump will be over there, and I was thinking about going, but I probably can't, but I'm going to think about it overnight to go to the funeral, but I don't know if I can do it logistically, but I'll think about it. And that's a memo. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on X. Look for @Bill O'Reilly.